With not a whole lot left to play for here in 2024, perhaps NC State football will begin looking toward the future.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our Tuesday sponsor is FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Head on over to FanDuel.com in order to get started. Happy Tuesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, today we're going to be talking about NC State football potentially needing a little bit of a youth movement. Now, we've kind of alluded to this in our post-game Saturday, talked about it a little bit more in Monday's episode. I believe now with your big picture goals off of the table, and by that I mean ACC championship and 10 wins on the schedule, I wouldn't be surprised if NC State begins starting to see what they really have in some of their younger players.
I mean, we already are to a certain extent.
Right.
What positions are we not seeing a lot of young guys play in? What position are we looking at that we wouldn't say, hey, there's a young guy starting here, there's a young guy playing there? Our QB1 right now is a true freshman. The leading receiver right now is not, or he's the only one that's draft eligible out of our top, 3 or 4 pass catchers. And then you go beyond that, our second leading rusher, I believe, is Kendrick Raphael, also an underclassman. So, I mean, you're seeing a very, very big amount of young players already. This is a young team. You know, these are, as Dewey from Malcolm in the Middle said, the future is now, old man. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of young guys out there playing and getting things done. And the unfortunate part is it's not by choice, it's by necessity at some of these spots at some points, which you never want to see. But here you are with the linebacker injuries. You're going to see younger guys playing at linebacker instead of some elder statesmen. With some of the things that we've seen in terms of just production at other positions, you're going to see younger guys playing because they're outproducing the older guys. So, I mean, objectively speaking, I don't think that a youth movement is on the way. I would say a youth movement is already here.
Yeah, we'll start defensively here before we move back and talk more about the offense. Kamal Bonner is a name that's hot on the press right now. With Caden Fordham going down for the remainder of the season, Kamal Bonner appears to be possibly the newest starting linebacker in the mix. We did see Jalen Parker a little bit earlier in the season when Fordham was ejected from that first game against Western Carolina. The linebacking core, which we had so many questions about earlier in the season, well, in the preseason as well, you're going to see a lot of young guys getting thrown into the fire, trial by fire, essentially now, because like Kent was talking about, it's necessity. Fordham is down. The rest of the linebacking core has been iffy at some times. I think Devon Betty's had his moments, but he's also had other Devon Betty moments. You got to start figuring out what guys you can prioritize moving forward in the younger class. And I talked about Elijah Groves the other day. I wouldn't hate seeing some of Elijah Groves in the last 4 games of the season. Now, something else to keep in mind here. One, they're still actively trying to win football games. So when I say moving toward the future, they're not tanking. They're not going to punt on the rest of the season. They're still going to put their best players on the field, and I understand that. But when I say Elijah Groves in the last 4 games of the season, trying to maintain his red shirt, and sometimes red shirt is completely irrelevant, but in this case, I do think it applies. I want to see what he has, because Tony Gibson had glowing reviews about Elijah Groves as just a true freshman in the preseason. If he is that, I think you go ahead and get him some involvement. Go ahead and get him some live snaps, get him up to game speed, and see what you have in him, because potentially he could be a major factor next year. Also, with the addition of Jihad Carter news, and we'll talk more about that in just a second, when T-Mac Cooley was ejected on Saturday night, it was Isaiah Crowell that came in and played over Jihad Carter. Isaiah Crowell is just a sophomore, and he played meaningful snaps in that game. I think he even had a TFL, if I'm not mistaken. So you're going to see more of these younger guys creep into the lineup, and I think it's extremely important to try and figure out who has what and who can contribute as early as next year. I saw that Ronnie Royal, who's also a true freshman, he got in the game on special teams. Linebacker Zane Williams, I think, was another one. He got in on special teams. there's so many different names I think you're going to start to see to really pop up here in these last 4 or 5 weeks. And that's before you even get into the offense. Jonathan Paylor is a name that I'm shocked he's only really participated in one game all season. That was the freshman name that we all talked about in the offseason. We wanted him super bad on the recruiting trail. We got him to come here, and we've seen basically nothing of him. And I know he was a late addition to the team, meaning that he did not arrive on campus until midsummer. But if he is the athlete that they say he is, I'm shocked that he's had very little showing up to this point.
Yeah, and like you and I talked about, he's a guy that you just find a way to get involved. Even if you can't do anything else with him, put him back there, kick return, punt return, see what happens. You know what I mean? That it's one of those situations where it's a little confusing. But I will say this: I understand it from a standpoint of, hey, if the playbook is too complicated, there's just too much going on in that regard. I do understand only from the standpoint of our pass catchers haven't been the problem. We have not had a situation where we're like, damn, we need a playmaker out wide. So I can understand the thought of, I don't want to burn his red shirt, potentially keeping him there a whole nother year for a few good kick returns. Especially if I feel like, hey, even with those returns, this team is not going to be taken to another level by that. I get it. I understand it. I'm not necessarily saying I agree. I'm not necessarily saying there's no way that you're going to put him on the field, that you're going to find something for him to do on the field. What I am saying is I understand the rationale. It's not the most insane thing in the world to say, you know what? You would be a hellified player in some special packages and on kick return, but we could save you and use an extra year of you dominating, being a bad dude, terrorizing the country on the second end, on the back end of your eligibility as opposed to on the front end.
Yeah, and the reason I wanted to bring this up today is it's that time of year, especially with the way that the season has gone and you're getting down to the nitty-gritty, only 4 to 5 games left on the schedule. That's when the coaching staff is going to start to utilize these last games for valuable experience. And that extends out to CJ Bailey, of course, as well. He is a true freshman. He is QB1, and this is his team now. More about what we were talking about on Saturday and Monday. You just want to continue to see him progress the remaining games of the season. That also extends into the young wide receivers. Keenan Jackson, Terrell Anderson, possibly Duke Scott at some point in the running back room if you want to get something else going, other than Smothers and Raphael. Overall, you just got to get these young cats in and see what they can do, because then you start to prioritize what you need to do in the offseason. And you're looking at both portal, high school recruiting. All of that is just around the corner. It's going to get very real here in a handful of weeks. And so it's more than important for NC State right now to figure out what they can bank on that will come back next year. And not just that, who's coming back and who can play immediately next year. You got to start to already build around your guys and figure out what do we have coming back. And then you start kind of building off expectations from there.
Yeah, and it's not ridiculous to say that at all, because again, like you said, all of the goals that we saw coming into the season, they're kind of out the window. They're kind of out the window. So, like you said, see what the young guys got, see what you got going forward in the future. Because, objectively speaking, we're going to have to pull out some really tough ones to get to a bowl game. And by really tough ones, I don't mean, hey, this team is a world beater that we cannot compete with. This team has shown me nothing to indicate that they can consistently win at a level that I'm like, hey, go ahead and mark off 3 to 4 more or 5 more to end this season.
Coming up next, we're going to get into a whole lot of nothing or a whole lot of something after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first Tuesday sponsor is Roy. Wolfpack fans, it's time to recognize our Roy Player of the Week. So far this season, we've pulled over $10,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change. With the Roy app, you can direct your support to the athletes you love, ensuring that all the funds go to the specific player that you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and you even receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. The best part? It's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver the content, you get all of your money back. This week, we're supporting CJ Bailey, and we would love for you to help us support him. Let's show CJ Bailey the love and support that keeps him connected to NC State. And remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets your team up for success. Don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaway, winning 2 tickets to any game of your choice in November. Just download Roy, create an account, and enter referral code LOCKEDON, And just like that, you're entered. If you're already on Roy, any contribution to an athlete's campaign will also get you automatically entered into the sweepstakes. No purchase necessary and void where prohibited. Download Roy now and join the NIL game with no subscriptions and no fees. Be sure to check them out on Instagram, Facebook, and on Twitter as well at Roy_. Check it all out on Roy. Support the players and change the game. Middle portion of our Tuesday show. Now time for a whole lot of nothing or a whole lot of something. 3 topics. We'll tell you exactly where we stand on them. On Monday, we saw Inside Pack Sports reported senior safety Jihad Carter is no longer on the NC State roster. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something, because how many guys have we seen on the schedule, or on this roster rather, that all of a sudden disappear into the abyss? How many times have we seen guys that were supposed to be big time contributors all of a sudden fade away into oblivion and now off the roster? And I get it. Most people are going to say, well, that's only 2 times, but it's too many. Like that. What are we seeing here? That we're seeing multiple guys that, again, seniors, guys who do not have any eligibility left, or guys who have the red shirt and will only have 1 year of eligibility left, transferring out of the program mid-season, or deciding to shut it down mid-season, or being shut down mid-season. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that's just like, what is happening here? Very disappointing. Whole lot of something.
In the preseason, when we talked about guys that you could anticipate breaking onto the scene for NC State, I believe defensively, I named Jihad Carter as one of my answers. And this season, he's been a bit of a no-show. And I know he fought injury in the beginning of the season, probably still working back from whatever it was last year up at Ohio State, but he provided very little to no impact on this defense this year. And when that happens, you find yourself very susceptible to being played over. And in this case, it was sophomore Isaiah Crowell on Saturday night. He replaced T-Mac Cooley after Cooley was ejected due to targeting, which was another bad penalty. However, Crowell came in and he made instant impacts that Jihad Carter was not. And so I'd have to imagine that not only did that have a massive play into him being no longer on the roster, but you just kind of wonder if he was just not a good culture fit, or he just wasn't quite as healthy as he was in years past. This was a guy that was an all ACC defender at Syracuse. And so for him to be seemingly a shell of that type of player, what happened? I don't know. But this is now the second guy, Jihad Carter and Red Hibbler, 2 guys that you had somewhat lofty expectations of. You don't really see much of them, and then poof, they're off the roster in the middle of the season. So I think it is concerning from possibly a culture standpoint. I would probably bet that they just don't fit into the culture rather than it's a culture problem. Best wishes to Jihad Carter, but this is definitely a whole lot of something. Second one here, NC State's offense is tied for the 5th most turnovers lost in the entire country. 125th out of 133 FBS teams. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something. Whole lot of something. For those of you who are listening and not watching, I just rubbed my face in a very aggressive manner, because this is what I mean by this team. I don't know what it is. It's a terrible case of the can't get right-itis. And even with that, you still got a little bit of bad luck sprinkled on top of it, because how do you go from a team that excels in taking care of the ball to all of a sudden, and mind you, last year, did we have 1 quarterback, Grayson?
No.
We had multiple quarterbacks last year. Senior 5th-year transfer and a freshman upstart. Very similar to this year. And don't get me wrong, I don't take back anything I said about MJ Morris. I still believe that had he stayed, we'd be in a very different position right now. Still believe that firmly. However, if ifs and buts were berries and nuts, squirrels would never starve, and if ifs were fists, we'd all be drunk, and yet Grace and I are sitting here dead sober. So it's not about if, it's about what we objectively have seen. And what we have objectively seen is, yes, there have been some god-awful reads, some terrible moments where it's like, what are you doing throwing that ball, or what are you looking at? But even beyond that, it's been like every single time we fumble, nobody on the Wolfpack is near the ball. Like, what? It's just, a whole lot of something. When you look at what's happening this season and you look at the underperformance, that's it. Grace and I talked about the ball game last week was the 3 turnovers, period, point blank. The missed field goal is forgotten if we get 3 more and we make all of them, because that would put us as winners. The missed field goal is forgotten if we just get 2 of those drives to be touchdowns, even if we don't score on the other 2. So, it's a whole lot of something.
Definitely a whole lot of something. And this is shocking for a team that was tied for, I think it was 9th in the country in overall turnover margin last year. We were exceptionally doing well at taking care of the football and taking it away from other teams. This year, it's been quite the opposite. And so when you are turning the ball over 2 to 3 times a game, you have to be nearly perfect on every other drive to basically make up for that. And we're nowhere close to that either, defensively or offensively. So if you continue to cough up the ball, you're going to lose games. Whether that's on the ground, throwing poor interceptions. I really don't think most of the interceptions have been poor. The McCall one against Tennessee was very bad. Well, the first one against Western was also bad. CJ threw one short against Clemson. I don't know, kind of is what it is. The Wake Forest pick was bad. Okay, maybe they're all bad. The LA Tech pick was bad. They're all bad. Turnovers are bad in general. You have to find a way to take care of the football. Ball security is job security. If you cannot hold on to the ball or make good decisions with the ball, you put your team at an extreme disadvantage regardless of who you play, whether it's Stanford or Georgia Tech or the Dirty Foot Club. If you can't take care of the football, you are in grave danger of coming out with a win. Learn that lesson the hard way Saturday night against Syracuse. A little bit of hoops talk here for the third one. NC State men's basketball is the only of 4 Final Four teams to not receive any votes in the preseason top 25. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of nothing. I mean, we have to replace a ton of guys. You have to replace DJ Burns. You have to replace DJ Horn. You have to replace Casey Morsell. You have to replace a lot of guys that were very impactful, not only to the run, but to the season in general. And, this is the unfortunate part about the difference between football and basketball, because there won't be a chance for NC State football to shake the can't get right-itis by like, hey, we're playing a tournament of all the ACC football teams. You just find a way somehow to kind of make things gel and click. It doesn't work that way. But, I understand why the voters voted the way they did in terms of, hey, this team caught lightning in a bottle. I'm not sure if they can do it again, is what the voters are saying. And rightfully so. I'm not mad at them for saying that.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely a whole lot of nothing. I saw a lot of NC State fans kind of get up in arms about this type of thing. I was not at all surprised to not see NC State in the preseason top 25. I would bet you the majority of the country, they probably look at our run as a fluke. And many of us might also kind of look at as a fluke. And I think it will be on Kevin Keatts to prove this season that it wasn't a fluke. But you have an entirely new cast of characters. I mean, don't get me wrong. You have some very key returners coming back as well. But when you lose a DJ Horn and a DJ Burns and Mo Diarra and Casey Morsell, it's hard to just give immediate credit to this new team when you don't quite know what they will be this new season. So there's a lot of talent that came back into this program using the transfer portal. We can't wait to see what they look like. But not only am I not surprised to see NC State in the preseason top 25, it doesn't really matter. If this team is like that, you will find out in the beginning 2 months of the season, because they have one of the better non-conference schedules that I can remember in NC State basketball history. They play Kansas, who's supposed to be the number 1 team in the country. You have Texas coming to the Lenovo Center. The Lenny, I'm hearing it may or may not be called. You have Purdue in a preseason tournament. You're going to have your opportunities to prove yourself early in the season. So I'm not concerned with the preseason top 25. These things usually don't matter. I mean, we just found out with football, ranked 22 to enter the season. Look where we're at now. They just don't matter all that much. So we don't know what any of these teams really are going to look like once this thing tips off. So NC State not being in the preseason top 25, it's really not that big of a deal. Now, the women's team, they're number 9 in the preseason top 25. That is warranted. I think they got that one right. There's a whole lot of talent on Wes Moore's new squad, and they're looking to make some noise as well. But all in all, preseason top 25, it's a whole lot of nothing. Coming up next, we're going to round out our Tuesday show talking about some comments made by Boo Corrigan sent out over the airwaves on Monday. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second Tuesday sponsor is FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats and view live play-by-play on the very same page that you're placing all of your bets. You can get started with $200 on bonus bets guaranteed when you place just your first $5 bet on the app. NC State is now up to a double-digit underdog on the road at Cal on Saturday. If you think that they will finally cover for the first time this season, waste no more time. Head on over to FanDuel.com in order to get started. Last couple of minutes of our Tuesday show. Wanted to spend a couple minutes talking about the graphic that Boo Corrigan sent out both on social media and through email to Wolfpack students and fans on Monday. Now, this felt in my mind like it was a little bit of a response to some of the comments that head coach Dave Dorn had made about fan support these last couple weeks. There has been the idea that Dave is blaming the fans for the on-field performance. I don't think he's been blaming the fans. However, I think he said very poorly worded messages in talking about the fan interactions. And I think it's come across in a fashion where it does sound like we're not getting enough fan support on third down, or some of the stadium is not as loud as it's supposed to be. I don't think he's quite trying to say that, but he's not doing himself any favors with the manner in which he is talking about it. And this really kind of ramped up in the preseason before we even started, where he said this team is not asking for fans' opinions. We're just asking for your support. And I know that rubbed a lot of people raw. Then you lose the game to Wake Forest, and he mentions everybody having to stand up on third down. Now, I get what he's trying to say, but when you lose to Wake Forest, the fans is like the number one thing I don't want to hear you talk about. I want to hear about why you failed to beat Wake Forest at home. That's it. And so the fans have been very up in arms about Dave Dorn's comments about the fans so far this season. On Monday, Boo Corrigan sends out this graphic. For those of you listening and not watching, I'll read it aloud for you. It says, Wolfpack Nation, thank you. We want to take a moment to send a thank you to each and every one of you for always being there and standing with us. Wolfpack Nation has been tremendous so far in 2024, selling out every home game in football, marking 20 straight capacity crowds, lighting Charlotte red for the Dukes Mayo Classic, setting a new attendance record for our volleyball team, and eclipsing 3,000 fans at a men's soccer match for the first time since 2011. And you haven't just shown up. You've made your presence known. Thanks to your passion and love for the Wolfpack, the atmosphere at our games has been electric. It means so much to our student athletes and coaching staffs. Together, we will continue to fight, but please know how much we appreciate you. Thank you. Be well, Boo Corrigan. Now, Kenton, when you see this put out by Boo on Monday, what were your initial thoughts?
Hey, more power to Boo. More power to him, thanking the fans for showing up. But I don't want to talk about Boo in this moment because this letter was very nice, very heartfelt, very all that good stuff. You know, it's what you should say to fans. Fans should get nothing but placating. Thanks, guys. Keep it pushing.
Right.
You know why? Because asking, well, maybe if the fans support it more, we do better, or even hinting at it, to me is the most ridiculous. It is the dumbest thing I have ever heard in my life. It is like asking which came first, the chicken or the chicken nugget. Buddy, if you win football games, if your team can complete basic passing concepts, if you decide, hey, I'm a former tight end, the offensive coordinator is a tight end coach, our best offensive weapon that people are not double teaming, triple teaming, we got all eyes on him, is a tight end, people would do all of the things. And again, this is how y'all know that nobody gets extra venom from me, or nobody gets extra love from me because of who they are. Because Coach Dorn is the reason I'm in the state of North Carolina right now. I was part of his first recruiting class. I don't give a damn about what the fans are or not doing. I care about, why do we keep, what fan was responsible for the 3 turnovers? Was it you, Grayson?
It was not me. It was not me.
You sure? I know you come from Wolfpack family. It had to be your sister. She had to do something to distract our running back to make a fumble. It had to be something along those lines. It just simply had to be.
We Boons are steady-handed. We run the rock.
Oh, okay. All right. So, I am thoroughly confused. Do you know what it is like to be a Wolfpack fan right now? In the office. You think people are saying, hey, man, y'all having a great season. We can't say nothing to you. Do you know what I've heard in the office from people who've never even heard this podcast before? Hey, you used to play at NC State, didn't you? Tough season, huh? What about that would make me show up and be loud from first quarter to fourth? Explain it to me like I'm a 5th grader. You can say what, and this is why I never lost sight of this when I played. Never once. Fan is short for a fanatic. Fanatic does not mean that you'll be reasonable, that you'll be decent, that you'll be upstanding, all those things. Fanatic normally has a negative connotation behind it. That's why they took the attic off and reduced it to fan. Fans show up according to what you're putting on the field.
Right.
Do you think if this team was undefeated and mopped the floor with Tennessee and Clemson, there would be anything said about the fans right now?
Nothing but praise.
Do you think the fans would want to do anything but scream and shout their heads off? No, because they can walk around with pride that I got that Block S on me. Yeah, I've been a Wolfpacker. Yeah, my whole family's Wolfpackers. But right now we're hearing, what's going on over there? What happened with the quarterback was supposed to be good, right? What? No, you all. What? Y'all are supposed to be a defensive team. What's going on? Don't worry about the damn fans. Worry about the game. Worry about what you're putting on the field. Worry about that. And then maybe we can talk about what the fans are or not doing.
I certainly know a lot of people feel a type of way about Boo Corrigan as well, but all in all, I thought this was a good move because at the very least, it shows that he has his finger on the pulse. And as an AD, that is not a suggestion, that is a requirement. And so for him to realize the frustration amongst Wolfpack fans and realize that very clearly what's happening on the field is unacceptable, I did appreciate, at least on a small level, that he put this out to let us know, hey, y'all have shown up. We've asked you to show up. You are showing up, and you continue to show up. We thank you for that. Because if not, this would be a whole lot worse than it currently is. So I did appreciate that from Boo Corrigan. I also understand it is him doing his job because guess what? Season ticket renewals are in the near future. So there's a little bit of calculation here. I get that too. But all in all, it was a little bit of a subtweet at Dave, I think. It felt a little bit like some damage control, trying to clean up. No, listen, there's nothing but appreciation for the fans. We're not blaming it on you. It's not this. It's not that. We see you, we hear you, and we appreciate you. That is all that Dave should have been saying this entire season. Don't mention the fans' opinions. Don't mention the fans sitting up or standing down on third down. Don't do anything other than say, this team is going to fight. We'd appreciate if you fight with us. That is it. And especially, like I said, when you lose to a team like Wake Forest or Syracuse or almost to Western and LA Tech, I don't want to hear anything about the fans. I want to hear about your team and why they're underperforming. That is it. So for the rest of the season, that's what I want to hear from Dave. Just talk about your young guys getting on the field and how you are continuing to get better. That is all that matters. Leave the fans out of it. We'll deal with that on this side.
And this is no disrespect because I love the man. I got his number in my phone. If I needed to call Dave Dorn right now, I feasibly could, right? That's true story, true fact right there. But the reality of this is simple. I'm going to shoot it straight every single time. And to me, again, I take it back to when I was growing up, I learned the fans go up, the fans go down. You have to be a flatliner. Do what you do.
Right.
When I was in high school, I learned state championships, the first one in the history of the city, ain't enough equity. And to me, that's my bar. If you have, I believe that you can eventually say something to the fans. If you got a championship under your belt of any kind, I give you the right. I give you the right to say, hey, if Narduzzi up there at Pitt want to say, hey, Pitt fans, you got to show up now. You got to do your thing. He's given you a conference championship in recent history for you to look back at. Even if a 3-9 year, which he had a few years ago, erodes some of that confidence, he's giving you a championship where you can walk around the office saying, oh, you Penn Staters, any of y'all got a championship reason? Oh, man, that's so unfortunate. Well, anywho, my team, he's giving you that ability. You know, he's giving you that ability to look at West Virginia folks. Hey, do y'all have any championships since Pat White left town? That's tough. Anyway, when you build that type of equity, you can talk a little something to the fans. But last time I checked, with Hyundai Sun Bowl champions, like
that's it.
I don't, and again, that's not disrespect. It's just the truth. Don't worry about the fans. Worry about the product you're putting on the field.
All that needs to be said, the product on the field is the only thing that should matter the rest of the season. Leave the fans out of it. That'll do it for us here on Tuesday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button, drop your comments in the comment box. Tell us what you thought about Boo Corrigan's message and Dave's messaging to the fans so far this season. Anything you have on your mind, drop that down in the comment box as well. And also about the youth movement. If you have any particular players that are underclassmen that you want to see a whole lot more of, drop their names in the comment box as well. I'm very curious to see what y'all are thinking. Mash that subscribe button if you have not already. We'll see you right back here tomorrow for more on Wednesday. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.